ओ ओम श्री गणेशाय नमः। ओम श्री सरस्वत्यै नमः। ओम श्री गुरुभ्यो नमः। सच्चिदानन्दरूपाय विश्वोत्पत्त्यादिहेतवे तापत्रयविनाशाय श्रीकृष्णाय वयं नुमः। श्रीकृष्णाय वयं नुमः। वसुदेवसुतं देवं कंसचाणूरमर्दनं देवकी परमानन्दं कृष्णं वन्दे जगद्गुरुं। कृष्णं वन्दे जगद्गुरुं। मूकं करोति वाचालं पङ्गुं लङ्घयते गिरिं यत्कृपातमहं वन्दे परमानन्दमाधवं। परमानन्दमाधवं परमानन्दमाधवम्। ॐ वाङ्मे मनसि प्रतिष्ठिता मनो मे वाचि प्रतिष्ठितम् आविराविर्म एधि वेदस्य म आणिस्थः श्रुतं मे मा प्रहासीः अनेनाधीतेन अहोरात्रान् संदधामि ऋतं वदिष्यामि सत्यं वदिष्यामि तन्माम् अवतु तद्वक्तारमवतु अवतु माम् अवतु वक्तारमवतु वक्तारम्। ओम शांति शांति शांतिः। सदाशिवसमारम्भां शङ्कराचार्यमध्यमाम् अस्मदाचार्यपर्यन्तां वन्दे गुरुपरम्परां। श्रुतिस्मृतिपुराणानाम् आलयं करुणालयं नमामि भगवत्पाद शङ्करं लोकशङ्करं। शङ्करं शङ्कराचार्यं केशवं बादरायणं सूत्रभाष्यकृतौ वन्दे भगवन्तौ पुनः पुनः। ईश्वरो गुरुरात्मेति मूर्तिभेदविभागिने व्योमवद्व्याप्तदेहाय श्रीदक्षिणामूर्तये नमः। श्रीदक्षिणामूर्तये नमः। श्रीदक्षिणामूर्तये नमः। श्री कृष्ण गोविंद हरे मुरारे हे नाथ नारायण वासुदेवा जिह्वे पिबस्वामृतमेतदेव गोविन्द दामोदर माधवेति। हे कृष्ण हे यादव हे सखेति। हे कृष्ण हे यादव हे सखेति। हे कृष्ण हे यादव हे सखेति। नारायण नारायण नारायण। वर्स नंबर 68। तस्माद्यस्य महाबाहो निग्रहीतानि सर्वशः इन्द्रियाणीन्द्रियार्थेभ्यः तस्य प्रज्ञा प्रतिष्ठिता। तस्माद्यस्य महाबाहो निग्रहीतानि सर्वशः इंद्रियाणि इंद्रियार्थेभ्यः तस्य प्रज्ञा प्रतिष्ठिता. Bhagwan Shankaracharya ji's bhashya on this particular verse. Indriyanam pravruttau dosha upapadito yasmat tasmad yasya yatehe he mahabaho nigrahitani sarvashah sarva prakaraihi manasadi bhedaihi indriyani indriyarthebhyah shabdadibhyah tasya prajna pratisthita. So we were seeing this verse in the last session where we completed the last session. We were trying to see Bhagwan in this verse says, Hey Mahabaho, Arjun, you already have self-control in you. So I am not giving this statement to one who have to practice self-control yet. I am giving this statement to you, giving this advice to you because you already have it in you. You have lived a life of self control till now, and that is that can be seen by the kind of achievements, the series of achievements you have in life. What the kind of achievements Arjun had cannot be achieved by anyone if there was no exercise of self control by that person. Only once a person exercises self control in life, that is what paves way for series of successes to the credit of this person. So Arjun, I am calling you, hey Mahabaho, oh mighty armed, means what? You already have lived a life of self control. You already have it in you. That is why it is easy for you to understand and little bit shift into the whole self control concept which you have in your mind till now, for your achievements as a best archer in the world, for your achievement as the most mighty armed in the world, one of the best warriors in the world. You already have all those achievements and still now, which you has come out of the self control you have exercised in life. But if you take that to the next level, when we say, take your achievements, take your or whatever you have practiced till now, take your efforts to the next level. Only once you take it to the next level is when you can reach further heights than what you have already achieved. So Bhagwan is trying to tell Arjun, you have the capability in you of self control, so you can definitely take it to the next level. Tasmad, that's why, hey Mahabaho, nigrahitani sarvashah. Arjun, I'm telling you that you must work towards controlling your senses from all around, from the entire gamut of the objects available in the world. Object, situations, people, you just take it in that way, available in the world. You have to exercise absolute alertness and vigilance when it comes to acts through your senses or comprehension through your senses. You must have complete alertness and vigilance all around you. None of these things should go in you, or your mind should not get stick on to anything in this world at all. You must act through them and move on. Act through them and move on. And he said, Indriyani indriyarthebhyah tasya prajna pratisthita. All these senses, as I mentioned in the last session, actually senses don't stick to the object, situations, or person. It's actually senses only does the work of waiter or the service provider who carries it to the mind, but it is upon the mind to stick to something. I told you, mind only sticks to something. And that too happens when, according to the BMI chart, our mind is more powerful than the intellect. Means what? Either intellect is not powerful at all to give a conclusion to the mind or exercise control over the mind, to give a decision to the mind, which one to stick on to and which one to just move on with. So as I'm just telling you one example also. Many people say that, I have this situation which has come in my life, even though physically I've moved on, but what to do? That is actually that thought and that thing which I've enjoyed is actually haunting me throughout my day and night, during my sleep, during my things, and I am not able to control that because mind has sticked on to it. Even before the stick on happened, there was no intellectual decision given to the mind, or actually intellect is not powerful enough to actually give decision to the mind to, what to stick on to and what to move on, what to not stick on to. So since that thing is there, senses are like a service provider, gives it to the mind, and since the intellect, power of intellect is missing there, mind sticks on according to its own whims and fancies. And the thing is, why I use the word whims and fancies? Mind sticks on means what? Mind starts to fantasize things with, objects, situations, and people also, even though it has not, may not have come to that level, but mind, has it got his own way of having some hallucinatory kind of thoughts around, fascinating about things, fantasizing about things. I wish if this would have been there, my life will be beautiful. Do you have any experience that your life is going to get beautiful after this object comes in your life? No, you don't have. You are only, projecting it. Mind is actually doing vikshepa, because it's avarana means which has been veiled with the correct kind of wisdom, because intellectual power is not there. Mind starts to project, and there is no limit for the mind to project, to be honest with you. I want to tell you one thing which Bhagwan is also going to say in the further chapters. Bhagwan has made mind very powerful, by the way. Mind has got immense power. And that is why, in every spiritual classes and every spiritual sessions, every Mahatma, every Rishi, every scripture will always put focus over this point, that if mind is controlled well, trust me, you can make a wonder out of your life. But if the same mind is not controlled well, you can literally destroy your life. You don't have to see anywhere. That is the power of mind. And the entire vertical growth, which I've been talking about in my podcast, depends on this control. And that is exactly the reason why Bhagwan gave 11 verses for self control, which means what? Bhagwan is declaring to you that definitely for a human being, why I'm not putting other beings, because animals, plants, and all, they are bhog yonis, so I'm not talking about them. Especially if you're come in a human life, it will be a big disaster if you do not spend some time during your lifespan to actually make mind your friend by having a friendly control over the mind. That is the word I'm using. Mind, you don't need to make an enemy out of it. Means that it's not a student kind of a thing, but yes, mind should become a partner to intellect, and intellect should gain the power. And remember one thing, partnership is only between equals. So intellect needs to have correct knowledge and wisdom first for mind to accept it as a partner. If many a times intellect should come back and tell mind with logic, with data, that why you are wrong in what the way you are thinking. If you have that data, mind will definitely listen to you, but you have to practice. So we saw in that verse, Bhagwan said that indriyani indriyarthebhyah tasya prajna pratishtita, the one who has exercised this kind of a control, sarvashah nigrahitani, has exercised control, or has completely kept everything from exercise control in entirety over mind, and vis-a-vis all the kind of sarvasha, vis-a-vis every kind of circumstances and objects and situations in the world, tasya prajna pratishtita, that's one I will say that his wisdom is firm. So, as a conclusion, I told you, Bhagwan is trying to conclude his teaching of self-control. The topic of self-control, Bhagwan is concluding that topic of self-control by giving the final state of achievement, and so that we all understand. See the way Bhagwan developed the thought process. I'm telling you one thing very honestly, in Bhagavad Gita, the way Bhagwan has developed the thought, that development is absolutely amazing. He's not giving a concluding thought to Arjun in the first beginning itself. He brings up an example first, tries to bring out the beauty of that thing by talking about the positives, then he brings out the negatives of not doing that thing, and then he slowly gradually builds it up to the level how you can and actually adapt it in your life, how you can bring it about in your life, how you can live it. It's not something, a vague concept lying somewhere that it is not livable at all. Bhagwan makes it possible in such a way that it is absolutely adaptable in our life, how we can and bring it about in our life. And then Bhagwan concludes that teaching by giving the final state of that at level of this man. Since this man is completely exercised control from all over, his fortress is so protected that no enemy can enter without his complete knowledge, without his permission. His fort of his BMI, body, mind, and intellect, is so strong that no enemy can actually pierce through it through any kind of weapon in the world. Let me just explain you from the warfare perspective itself. When some in the past, when some king used to make the fortress so strong that even enemies is any kind of weapons used cannot pierce through it, that fort itself becomes a strong point of protection for the king. And even when I say fort, the whole place is protected by a very strong wall. It's got very strong army. These days you see every country's is military budget is so much because vulnerability is there everywhere. There are so many kind of people and countries with wrong intentions, whose intention is not correct at all, who have only this thought not to manage their own boundaries but to capture others, is going through at these times. That is why military budget has to be strong. You may not want to do it, but you have no choice, because if you want to stay protected, you have to at least match your power, military power, in such a way that others cannot come in. And one thing beautiful I'll tell you about India, so to say, or Bharatvarsh, so to say. The core of India's thought process is, we will never go and capture any territory. It is not our intent at all. But yes, if any territory wants to join us, we will welcome. But that's entirely their choice. If any country wants to come and join us and become part of our this thing, we will always welcome. But we will not go after forcefully capturing territories over something or the other. That's not in the blood of India at all. We are a country which has always been ruled by Sanatan Dharma, and Sanatan culture will never ever do that. That's why I keep telling, when we talk about communal violence and all those things, Sanatan Dharma, you will not see that at all. I'm just giving you an example of Kumbh going on. So many crores of people, so many millions of people visited Kumbh. So many sannyasis have their own places of or having discourses and all. Also, such large gathering of Sanatanis have gone there, are going there also, because the Kumbh is continuing. Show me one place where there is a speech of hatred going on, even after so many Sanatanis coming and visiting, because that's not in our blood, that's not in our dharma at all. That is why I keep telling this thing. Sanatan is not even and comparable to other religions, so to say. We are not in the gamut of religion. We are dharma, and others are all communities and religions. Anyway, we'll see that whenever we come on a discussion platform for that particular one. So concluding this topic, in these 11 verses, Bhagwan elaborately explained the topic of self-control. And in this topic, Bhagwan gave us the established result, or the final result one achieves after exercising a life of self-control. And he started with the first verse on self-control, which is verse number 58. He started from there, and where Bhagwan gave Yada Samharate Chayam Kurmongani va Sarvashah. Bhagwan said that for a Sthita Prajna, for a man of realization, or a man of steady wisdom, so to say, is able to exercise this control. For that man of realization, man of steady wisdom, exercising control is natural in his blood. Is completely effortless. The moment any sense of danger around comes, senses are automatically withdrawn on and goes into the hard shell. And I would use the word, since the example was given of tortoise, I have explained there also. the hardest shell to protect us is the shell of bhakti or God. When we withdraw ourselves and get seated into the lap or into the unto the lotus feet of supreme consciousness within us, as then this entire body becomes a hard shell for any kind of danger to penetrate. And that is what Bhagwan has mentioned, and in that particular verse, in verse number 58, it the withdrawal of senses for a man of steady wisdom is automatic. It's completely effortless. The way a tortoise does it, the moment it senses is danger anywhere, it immediately withdraws its limbs into the hard shell, which is completely protective in terms of all the kind of external situations. The moment such kind of effortless withdrawal of senses happens, and when it becomes part of our inherent nature, or when the self control becomes woven in our personality, so to say, it becomes part of my blood, it becomes part of my inherent nature. Then, and what happens, that is called the pinnacle of achievement of all the efforts put for self control. That is the state of achievement of all the exercise we have done for self control since beginning, has made us realize that state. And in a man of realization, such a state of self control is automatic. But for a seeker, or a seeker can also, through these verses Bhagavan is saying, a seeker can also reach that state of automatic effortless self control, and a seeker must work towards it. And then Bhagwan also mentioned, and one of the things about what happens at the time of when a seeker is walking the journey of spirituality, in verse number 59 Bhagwan mentioned, Vishaya vinivartante niraharasya dehinah rasavarjam rasopyasya param drishtva nivartate. Bhagwan spoke about one truth. Bhagwan revealed one truth for a seeker during the time when the seeker is putting effort, that if anyone and practices nirahar means complete abstinence from the world of objects. Come what may, I will not consume, I will not engage so easily. Then this person can reach a level of self control. Why? Because as a result of exercising self control, as a, what do you call that, gift of offering into such a person who has put so much effort of self control, what happens, the objects itself, objects means the objects of worldly objects and situations and people also, seeing this person exercising self control for a period of time, automatically goes far from him. But even though the objects have gone far from him, but in the inner equipment of this person, or I would use the word in the chitta, memory of this person, and uh, the thought of beautification, that this thing is going to add beauty to my life, or that this thing is going to give me happiness whenever I engage with it, that will not go, because it is not completely vanished from his memory, not been eliminated from his or her memory. That's why in between it may just raise its head to talk about, to draw his attention towards that. Spruha. Spruha means draw his attention in between. This thing had given me happiness, can add beauty, because that thought has not gone yet. The Shoban Buddhi, the Sukh Buddhi which is there, it is still maintained in the memory of such a person. And because of that, at thought of beautification, that this thing is going to add beauty, and the thought that this thing can give me happiness, because of that, in between, the mind, the inner equipment gets drawn towards this object. Maybe if for a long period of time it may not, but in between it just definitely raises its head to show you that, yeah, see man, I'm also sitting there, it's there, you know. You've not reached that. It will keep reminding us that we have not reached that state which Bhagwan mentioned in the verse number 59. And since it keeps raising its head in between, because the thought is still there in the memory, that's why it is possible that the desire for object may also come in the inner equipment of this person, and the desire arises also in such a person. But that desire is not able to take the form of an action yet. Why? Because the object seeing this person exercising self-control has gone far from him. So that advantage is there. Since the object itself has gone far from this person, that's why even though this desire is there, but it is not able to convert itself into action. So that's one thing we need to understand. And Bhagwan is, as you know, through this verse explaining us, that's why a seeker should never get disheartened. Should never get disheartened. Why? If you have invoked God correctly in your journey of spirituality, trust me, many places God will give you power also. God will help you also walk through this journey, because no jiva can walk this journey alone. And that is one of the reasons God only sends Guru in our life, by the way. And I told you one of the verses in Vivek Chudamani, the third verse of Vivek Chudamani says the same thing. Durlabam trayamevaitat devanugraha hetukam manushyattvam mumukshutvam mahapurusha samshaya. So these three things are really rare in this world. Rare in this world means, what are the three things which are rare in the world? It's not easy for anyone and everyone to achieve it. That is what it is mean by rare. Rarest or rare are only able to achieve it. Deva, and it says devanugraha hetukam. It comes only by the grace of God. Durlabam trayamaivetat devanugraha hetukam. It only comes out of the grace and blessings of God. What is the three things? Manushyattvam, even after getting a human body, leading a life of human being. What do you mean by leading a life of human being? Just as I mentioned to you in many other podcast episodes also, when you look at the newses and the current situations and incidents happening around you, you will know that many living in this human body also are living worse than animals. That's the word I'll use. Not even animals, worse than animals. The kind of incidents and things which happen around, that is what points you out to that people have got this body to become human. Just because you have come into a human body, you have not become human yet. You are yet to become manushyattvam. Manushyattvam means humanness. So we have to cultivate humanness as in this body. Otherwise we are all coming from, I do not know how many lives, which life we have been coming from. All those tendencies are lying within us. So we need to nurture ourselves in the correct form and manner. So manushyattvam, mumukshutvam. Manushyattvam is one thing in even an effort or desire to become a human in this life itself, converting so that going forward we don't fall into the lower lives. That's the first thing. Mumukshutvam, living in a human life, the desire to seek liberation, mumukshatvam, desire to liberate, desire to be free forever, that also comes with the grace of God. And the last thing is Mahapurusha Samshraya, getting into an association of a Mahapurush. Mahapurush means a Jnani, a man of realization. A person, Mahapurush means remaining in human body is already become Mahan. Mahan means what? He is already reached a level that he can not only liberate himself, but he can also help many liberate with him. That is what Mahapurush is all about. So getting it means what? Guru. So even getting a guru in life is only with the grace of God. It's not possible otherwise. I'm just giving you an example. I'll give you when I move on also, talking about the importance of people. Only many times many people must have walked next to us, we may not even come to know. Because remember one thing, a guru, even if he's a guru, will never announce it to the world sitting in a bus station or train station that I am a guru, come to me. No way. That's not how a guru functions. You need to understand. Guru may touch your life in some way or the other, but many a times we only miss it because we don't have enough punya, we don't have enough grace of God. That Guru may walk just past by us, but we may not be able to benefit anything also. I'll give you certain examples also. I've seen people traveling in train with my Guruji, but talking about things which are completely irrelevant and for them in the world, like building, train, how it functions, what kind of a wonder the science is. I have seen what a waste of time. You got an opportunity to get knowledge of what Guru is sitting on, but you just missed it. Anyway, so that's how it is. So Bhagwan says that please, a seeker should not get at or dejected, not get it or completely embarrassed by the situation of that. He should not feel sorry for himself that this thing has come. We should not get disturbed, should not get disturbed by these things at all. All Bhagwan is saying in that you don't worry, just continue, keep walking the path, it will definitely help you. So and it is a truth of every seeker, it is a truth of life of every seeker that these kind of situations are definitely faced by us. And but a seeker must have this firm belief, a firm faith, that this kind of situation will not remain forever. It will come and go, and it is not going to remain forever. Bhagwan says in that particular verse number 59, Rasopyasya param drishtva. The moment you have vision of the eternal truth of the Supreme, when you have complete faith in that supreme consciousness, in that eternal truth, when you start to get abidance and you have a desire to abide in that at supreme self, at that moment itself, nivartate rasaha api, this taste which is lying in your memory of that, this is going to add beauty to my life, this is going to give taste in my add taste to my life, this is going to give me happiness, that will be completely eradicated, completely eliminated forever. And this thought that these things are going to give happiness to me in my life, if the moment you get the eternal happiness, eternal bliss, the moment you touch that, immediately these kind of small drops of happiness loses its importance. Loses its importance means they are completely removed from the intellect, because the higher source of happiness have enjoined, this intellect has enjoined the higher source of happiness. In front of that higher source of happiness, these things lose their importance. The biggest thing we need to understand is only by practicing self control, or and in between practicing in being away from the sense objects, niraharita, which Bhagwan mentioned in verse number 59, remaining in abstinent from those objects, remaining absent from those objects, remaining free from engagement with those objects, like this sukha buddhi which is there, the thought of happiness which is lying in the memory from these objects, slowly gradually it will also fade away, it will go away. By after knowing this truth which Bhagwan has explained, by knowing this truth, knowing this truth, a seeker must exercise, is continually practice the exercise of self control all in his or her life. After this, Bhagwan and talks about those people who do not give importance to this exercise of self control, or puts down self control as a mechanism to be adopted in life, if and thinks that it's a waste of life, waste of human life to just live in self control. Mind is to live free. Their definition of free is completely incorrect. And remember, Bhagwan says for such people, their mind itself does not remain theirs. Means what? It is not available for any achievement in their own life. For a man who is controlless, means who is not out exercising any kind of self control in life, for such a man, his or her mind is not available whenever you require it in your life for any kind of achievements. Such a person's all actions of such a person who's leading a control-less life, who's not working towards exercising any kind of control on senses and mind, such a person's all actions are impure in nature and full of faults and errors. They are completely polluted, is the word I'll use. They're full of faults and error means his all actions of such a person are completely full of pollution. It's polluting means it is pollution means what? It's not, of course, it's that pollution will have an effect externally also for the people who are around such a person, but more than that, that pollution is completely going to affect this person's own life, and this person's life will completely get derailed. That's why Bhagwan is giving a call to us saying that we must not, or look down upon this point, this important facet of life of self control. Rather, we must practice it every now and then, and continuously, every day. Daily practice of self control is definitely required. And the meaning of self control as given by Bhagwan is that all actions emanating from our senses should be completely controlled, should be completely channelized with a decent thought process, should be according to what scriptures guide us. The guidance should be of scriptures. That is what Bhagwan says. And Bhagwan, and had also, while explaining that, has brought about a topic by explaining in two verses the ladder of fall, where Bhagwan said that, while discussing this topic, while elaborating upon this topic of self-control, Bhagwan also brought about the ladder of fall. What happens if the man of yati means seeker, the person who was putting effort upon on this particular this particular side of life, the one who was putting effort upon, when a person becomes loses alertness and vigilance even for a few moments or few days, thinking that I'm already exercising in self control for so many days now, it's been months I've been exercising, let me give it a break. And that is one of the reason I mentioned to you last time, when we studied, we had no Saturdays, no Sundays. Every day the day used to start at 5 a.m. in the morning and end at 8. And there was no mobile, there was no external world connection for those 2 years. And because they taught us in 2 years what was actually taught in Gurukul for 20 years. So if you have to do that much of study, you have to have a complete focus on that. And to have complete focus, they had made such beautiful arrangement that external things, external stimuli are not even provided to you. So where will your mind go? Even though you may not have reached the course after having control, but you exercise control staying there only. And the one who does it diligently, that one only can benefit from it correctly and come out of the course after studying well. Otherwise, everyone studying doesn't reach any the actual destination and at any point in time. That's so only those who have put effort, exercise control, and put hard work, have exercised and actually put in hard work for that, definitely reaps the benefit, because spiritual knowledge is the knowledge to be gained in this entire world. So Bhagwan, explaining the ladder of fall, has spoken about dhyayato vishayan punsaha. Starting from this particular verse, Bhagwan and had culminated by buddhi nashat pranashyati. Till this point, in these two verses, starting from dhyayato vishayan punsaha up to buddhi nashat pranashyati, Bhagwan had step by step, I'm explaining that again to you, step by step, Bhagwan has given the each ladder of fall of such a person who loses alertness and vigilance even for a moment, and when he's already started walking the life of a seeker. buddhi nashat pranashyati. Bhagwan has explained this well over there. And for a seeker who is thoughtful, who has kept his thinking cap on why Bhagwan brought out this ladder of fall, for a seeker who has his thinking cap on, who is a thoughtful seeker, means leads a life of thought, or leads a life not haphazardly coming into action. A thoughtful seeker must know these different steps of fall, as explained by Bhagwan in the ladder of fall, that at each step what are the kind of controls required, what or controls need to be exercised, and how you can save yourself at each step. And that is one of the reasons why Bhagwan brought out elaborately the ladder of fall, for all of us to know that at each step what are the kind of precautionary steps you should do, what are the correction steps you can do to save yourself not from falling into the further steps away. And hold yourself at this step itself. If you fall all the steps, you may have to be hospitalized. I'm just saying, if you fall many steps, you may have to be hospitalized to recover, and may take many days or many weeks for you to recover. But if you fall only one step or something, probably you yourself can make some effort to control. You may not have to be hospitalized, so to say. So that is one of the reason Bhagwan has given this ladder of fall, that at what step what are the things you need to watch out for. And even if you just end up falling one step, how you can regather yourself and put your full concentrated effort so that you don't fall all further. And Bhagwan says, is at the level of, when the objects, worldly objects come into your thought, what are the kind of controls you should exercise. When sangha happens or the association happens, what are the kind of controls you can exercise. When it converts into desire, kamana, what are the kind of controls you can exercise. Excuse me. At the level of anger also you can control, provided you have practiced something called dhamma in life. Dhamma means indriya nigraha, that anger does not get expressed and that does not spoil the things further. And like this, Bhagwan has explained many levels of control at many steps. Bhagwan has explained, and what are the kind of efforts which can be put across in terms of controlling that. And a seeker should know all these kind of things, all these steps also of fall, and also the different levels of controls which can be exercised in case sometimes due to some small inadvertence, once one has to fall on one or the other step, must exercise, regather back and come back to that, and a seeker must practice all those. That is why in Sanatan Dharma, scripture says very beautifully, Vijnana Sarthi Yastu. Means what? But in reality, the one whose Sarathi means whose charioteer. In Mahabharat, Arjun's charioteer was Bhagwan. So here in Upanishad says, Vijnana Sarathihi Yastu, who the one whose charioteer, the one who is the driver of driving through the life, the one whose charioteer is Vijnanavan. Vijnana means full of knowledge and wisdom. Only that person can actually establish a life of self-control or be established in a life of self-control. That's why it is but important for all of us to work towards this thing. What? Gain the spiritual wisdom, gain the spiritual knowledge, gain about dharma. The next session, or before I end this second chapter, I'll give you one beautiful aspect of Bhagavad Gita, how Bhagavad Gita provides you different kind of knowledge to resolve different kind of situations in your life. When I complete this second chapter, at that time I'll bring it out. What Bhagwan says is, behind the effort towards self control, also the practice of self control, also, the bigger objective is to make our intellect knowledgeable and filled with wisdom, so that it can be more powerful or at least equally powerful as compared to mind. And such an intellect which is filled with knowledge and wisdom only can exercise control over mind, as I just mentioned in the beginning of this session. And according to Bhagavad Gita, you know, oh, how one is able to establish in a life of self control, or in this is, Bhagwan has mentioned, and in the verse number actually 64 about that, Raga Dvesha Viyuktaihi tu Vishayan Indriyais Charan Atmavashair Vidhe Atma is mentioned in this verse number 64. Or it's a very, very important verse, or in the topic of self control as put out by Bhagwan, where Bhagwan says that self control is not against action. Bhagwan is not saying that you run away from action. Bhagwan is not mentioning that at all. Bhagwan is saying, please understand, self control is not against, acting in life at all. And as at the level of senses, we say, when we talk about at the level of senses, is even when our senses are grazing through the worldly objects, situations, and people also, there is a technique by which while acting through the worldly objects, situations, and people also, a seeker can and ensure that his actions are within the ambit of dharma, within the ambit of control. And such a seeker who is able to exercise such thing in life, for sure this person is definitely going to gain something in life called prasada. Prasada means gift, or prasada means that which is gifted by God or to such a person. And a prasada is definitely sure that this person is going to achieve in life. But the only condition is that such a person's life, entire action of such a person and in his life would be devoted towards God. It is not running after or chasing after or fulfilling one's own desires and one's own interests, which may or may not be correct. The only condition is that all actions should be as a devotion or offering towards God, should only be wanting as an end goal that my God should be happy, should not be running after one's own likings and interests, so to say. And Bhagwan says, if you lead a life which is devoted towards your own likings and interests, that will become a reason for downfall of you in this life itself. Because in that, all the reasons of downfall are already embedded in such kind of acts, such kind of actions, such kind of process of acting which we do. Oh, and we need to understand one thing in our life, actually all of our lives, so to say, running after or chasing after or leading a life to fulfill our own likes and interests as is something which is already embedded in our nature, because that practice we have been doing from past many life, from anadikal, from time immemorial. This practice has been going on by us, and sooner or later we must think of leaving that kind of nature or moving away from such kind of nature of ours. And it cannot be dropped just like that. When we have to move away from something, and the biggest thing we need to remember is to drop something and move away from that. You have to first hold on to something which is better than that, which is higher than that, which is more auspicious than that. And Shivratri is just round the corner, and Shiva means auspiciousness only. That which is not Shiva is Shava. Shava means the dead body, inauspicious. A Shava or a dead body is inauspicious, right? And Shiva means auspiciousness. So Shivratri is just round the corner. We must know the actual way of, knowing Bhagwan Shiva also. So, such kind of habits have been already embedded in our nature from time immemorial. We have been leading such a life for, I do not know, eons of lives we have lived like that only. From how many generations we have been living like that, we don't even know. So it cannot be dropped just like that, because that practice have been embedded in our nature. The only best way to do it is hold on to something which is higher, or hold on to something which is better, hold on to something which is more auspicious. As so, when you replace it with something which is higher, auspicious and better, that's when you will be able to drop such kind of a habit. So I will use two words here in Hindi. So the moment you start at, working or adopting in your life Prabhu Parayanta, means a life of devotion to God, that my all actions are as a devotion to God to keep God happy, then, and what happens the moment the devotion to God and all actions leading towards happiness of God, or starts happening in your life, then all actions for your own selfish interests and liking starts to take a back seat, and slowly, gradually starts to get removed in your life. But until and unless that happens, until and unless us, having in this thought of having a devotion in life towards God, and all actions leading towards happiness of God does not come, till that time, and chasing after likings and interest won't go. And then Bhagwan says, the next verse Bhagwan spoke, in that verse Bhagwan said, Raga Dvesha, in that particular verse itself Bhagwan said, Raga Dvesha Vyuktaihi. This is a very big achievement of a man of self-control, or a man practicing self-control in life. It's a very big achievement. And such a person, Bhagwan names such a person, or gives a degree to such a person, gives a, what you call that, a prefix to such a person as Vidheyatma. Such a person I will call Vidheyatma. He is already promoted from Purushoham and all those things to a Vidheyatma. Is already exercising self control in life. One who leads such a life, such a person is called Vidheyatma according to Bhagwan. And such a person sooner or later will definitely, attain something called prasada, or auspicious things as a result of his action, so to say. And Bhagwan says, what is prasada? In 65th verse Bhagwan said, prasade sarva dukkhanam hanihi. And due to this prasada, what happens in such a person's life who's already been exercising a life of self-control and practicing it diligently in life, what happens? And all sorrows will be destroyed forever, and his chitta, his memory and intellect will experience something called a new kind of blissful happiness, so to say. And such a memory and intellect, at the time when scriptural teachings are given to such a person by a guru, at that time itself, this person, because of the purity of his intellect and memory, is able to establish himself in that knowledge of self which is given to him. So in the, is able to establish himself means what? Is able to experience that self at the time when the knowledge of self is given to such a person. And completely opposite to that, a person whose intellect is not organized, intellect and memory is not organized here, is not gathered enough for such kind of a thing, and the flickering, or the flickering of the intellect is still there. Intellect is very slippery and fickle, as fickle mindedness is still there, still exists in such a person. Such a person, even though the knowledge of self is given to it, it's the, the knowledge will not happen inside at such an intellect at all, will not be able to gain clarity of that knowledge. And if a guru is very very capable, a very I would use the word awesome guru, so to say, means what? A very gracious guru, so to say. A guru is established in the self, who has got a lot of aura in himself, and is completely self-realized saint. Even if such a guru whose blessing is on this kind of a disciple or a seeker, and this knowledge gets, as what you call that, deposited into the intellect and memory of such a person, means that clarity of knowledge comes there, but still the devotion towards that knowledge will not come out, the bhavana will not happen. And since that devotion towards that self does not happen in the intellect of such a person, the eternal peace, experience of peace forever or eternal peace, will not happen. And because us peace is, or a would say that eternal peace does not, or is not experienced by such a person will not be able to gain happiness forever, the way scriptures talk about. And you know even though by punya and grace of God you reached a guru, in that time you may have got the knowledge of the self also, and reach such a guru who is so, gracious, that because of the grace of guru and the love towards you, you got the knowledge also. But since the self control effort towards self control was not put, or whatever guru told you to do, you did not do it correctly, you did not follow the guru correctly, because of your lack of faith and belief in gurus, so to say, what happens, even though after getting the knowledge also, that knowledge does not remain in useful for such a person in this particular life. And in such a way, Bhagwan completed the topic of self control, and he kept in front of us all the verses explaining the need of self control for a human being, and the importance of self control for a human being. And in the last verse, which we saw in the last session, and Bhagwan has concluded the teaching of that, in which Bhagwan said, Tasmad yasya mahabaho निग्रहीतानि सर्वशः इंद्रियाणि इंद्रियार्थेभ्यः तस्य प्रज्ञा प्रतिष्ठिता. This is the state, and as a conclusion to that teaching of self control, Bhagwan gives the level of a self abiding saint, a self realized master, as a final achievement of what happens when one leads a life of self control and is able to make self control inherent part of one's nature. Our self control becomes natural to this person. And Bhagwan's in the as a concluding remark of all these 11 verses, Bhagwan is explaining very clearly that at only once a man of realization and after putting effort has reached this level, that's when his intellect, his memory, his chitta, his memory and intellect becomes firmly abiding in that self. And Bhagwan said, it's not about the knowledge of the self. Of knowledge of the self is definitely important, and it is prima facie important, because without knowledge of the self, how will you abide in something where you have no knowledge about? So knowledge of the self comes first. But then Bhagwan said, knowledge of the self will not be sufficient for you. Abidance in the self is something which is really sought from you. So, a seeker must put effort to establish himself in this is, aura of self control, and ensure that the self control becomes part of one's inherent nature. Self control is a topic which a seeker must never overlook, should never look down upon, should never overlook at all. If the seeker looks down or does not give enough focus on self control, then what Bhagwan said in verse number 67, that a seeker who loses this effort of exercising self control, and who wants to cross over the ocean of this samsara, of this world, well, to the other shore of supreme consciousness, but has not exercised self control, then what happens? Because of not exercising self control, or because of leading a controlless life, the wind in the form of worldly objects, situations, and people will make sure that the boat in which one is sitting, one is actually traveling to cross over the ocean, capsizes. Means what? You get lost on the path and you reach nowhere, and the life ends. Now now from now onwards, the remaining verses are actually Bhagwan is concluding the second chapter, and when Bhagwan is concluding the topic of Sthita Prajna also. And in the 68th verse, Bhagwan gave the level of a self-realized saint, a self-realized master. Bhagwan explained that as a concluding teaching of that. Even though Arjun did not ask about this thing, but now Bhagwan himself brings out one thing. What is the vision of a self-realized master? Now Bhagwan himself, even though Arjun did not ask this, but as a part of the topic which is going on of a man of realization, now Bhagwan in the next verse brings about the actual vision of a self-realized saint, self-realized master. But before I go into the verse number 69, let me read Puja Gurudev's commentary on verse number 68 before we go on. Puja Gurudev says, it is natural while in conversation that we do not directly give our wise conclusions upon the do's and don'ts of life without giving the logic of our thoughts that is leading to our conclusions. Without preparing our friend's mind to perceive the logic of these conclusions, we dare not declare to him any truth, however divinely acceptable the declarations are. Arjuna has been told earlier on about all the necessary arguments, and here in the stanza, Bhagwan Krishna reasserts the same proposition. Life in self control alone is life worth living. If we demand from it anything more enduring than tears, sobs, sighs, and groans, he alone is a man of wisdom, rooted in joy and bliss, who has completely restrained all his senses from their wild roaming among their sense objects. By destroying the sense organs which are roaming in the sense objects does not mean that a man of self development should destroy his capacities for perception of the world outside. Nor does it mean that he is the one who has been rendered incapable of enjoying life. Sense debility or incapacity, so to say, is not a sign of better knowledge. It is only meant here that the sense objects filtering through the five archways of knowledge will not, in a perfect man, flood his mind to bring chaos and destruction of his established inner peace and tranquility. The ordinary individual, in his egocentric existence, becomes victimized by the sense organs, while he who has conquered the ego and has transcended his matter identifications comes to live in freedom and perfect control over the tyrannical sense organs. And he connects the next verse saying, in order to make this point clear, the Lord proceeds. I also wanted to read out Bhagwan Shankaracharyaji's commentary, the connecting commentary on, before verse number 69, before I read the verse. It's very beautiful, so to say. Bhagwan Shankaracharyaji says, या अयम लौकिको वैदिकः च व्यवहारः स उत्पन्न विवेक ज्ञानस्य स्थित प्रज्ञस्य अविद्या कार्यत्वाद अविद्या निवृत्तौ निवर्तते अविद्यायाः च विद्या विरोधात् निवृत्तिः इति एतम अर्थम स्फुटीकुर्वन् आह. As mentioned, it's a brilliant way Bhagwan Shankaracharya has outlined it, but you have to understand it correctly. Don't misunderstand and go at all. Understand what is being told. Don't conclude here and there from this particular statement, okay? Bhagwan Shankaracharya ji says, Ya ayam laukiko vaidikah cha vyavaraha. All the actions you see in this world, whether they are actions as expounded in the world, as you see in the world, or emanating out of Vedas, all actions I'm talking about, all Laukik or Vedic Vyavara, all the kind of worldly actions or all the kind of actions as prescribed by Vedas, all of them are nothing but the effect of ignorance, avidya. और all of them स उत्पन्न विवेक ज्ञानस्य स्थित प्रज्ञस्य अविद्या कार्यत्वाद अविद्या निवृत्तौ निवर्तते. And when, and that's as and when, and for that person, and who has got the knowledge of the self. Now remember this thing, who has got the knowledge of the self means who has not only gained clear knowledge of the self with absolute clarity, and even the Viparit Bhavana, which I explained in the last session, that is also gone, and he has moved towards, gaining abidance in that self. For such a sthita prajna, for such a person, and at the time when the ignorance is dissolved or destroyed or resolved, and along with that, all the kind of actions, what actions? Laukika and Vaidika Vyavara, all the kind of actions as explained or as described by the world or described in the world or as described in the Veda, all actions as described, all the kind of actions which are prescribed for such a person, all of them are completely destroyed for such a person. It means what? This person is rendered free from all actions in the world. Why? Because since ignorance and knowledge and ignorance are absolutely opposite to each other. What do you mean by knowledge? Knowledge means removal of ignorance. What do you mean by ignorance? Absence of knowledge. Because knowledge is completely opposite of ignorance. Because of that, and along with gaining the knowledge and abidance, this person is rendered completely free from all kind of actions to be done in the world. Then the question comes, then what are the Mahatmas working upon? That I'll explain you when I talk about the verse number 69. Now let's read verse number 69. And so Puja Gurudev also makes this connecting statement saying, in order to make this point clear, the Lord proceeds in the next verse. So let's read verse number 69 first, and then we'll go into the meaning of what Bhagavan talks about. Very beautiful verse. Even the commentary of Bhagwan Shankaracharya on that verse is pretty long. So we will see how much we can cover today. Rest we'll take it up in the next session. Ya nisha sarva bhutanam tasyam jagrati samyami yasyam jagrati bhutani sa nisha pashyato munehe. Ya nisha sarva bhutanam tasyam jagrati samyami yasyam jagrati bhutani sa nisha pashyato munehe. So what I'll try to explain complete this session today at a point which gives you some pointers to think. One other thing I also wanted to mention is this verse is also one of the verses which is misunderstood by people. Because if you take the literal meaning, you may not be able to get the actual meaning of what Bhagavan is trying to say. Now I'll explain you the literal meaning I'm talking about. Ya nisha sarva bhutanam tasyam jagrati sanyami. That which is night for everyone. Everyone means everyone, not only for human beings. For all the beings, that which is night, right? And means what? That which is night means what? In that time when everyone else is sleeping, at that time, this man of realization is awake. Huh? What do you mean by that? I'm putting the wrong meaning first so that you understand that is not how we have to understand this particular verse. And it says, Yasyam Jagrati Bhutani Sa Nisha Pashyato Mune. and the time in which, at the time when everyone is awake, that this man of realization sees as night. Man, then some people may say, if I am going to see day as night and night as day, then I don't want this knowledge. No, don't take that meaning at all. Here, that is the reason I said, if you only put the literal meaning of this verse, of many verses in Bhagavad Gita, you may not be able to understand what Bhagavan is trying to say, because that is not how the meaning has to be done. So that's why it is said, no, there is actually a gudartha. Gudartha means tattvartha. There is a deep meaning to these verses in Bhagavad Gita. So let's see what Bhagavan is trying to say, so that I can leave you at a point where we can think upon on, and then I'll take it the remaining from the next. And that's the reason I'm not reading Bhagavan Shankaracharya ji's bhashya today. In the next session, before the session, I'll read that bhashya. But let me just try to explain you that point. And so the literal meaning you saw, that to that point, and that the time which everyone sees as night, this man of realization, for him that is actually a daytime. Means the man of realization is awake towards that, right? And the time when everyone is awake, a man of realization is sleeping at that time. That is not what the meaning is. So let's see what Bhagavan is trying to say. Now let me just step back and say that, to explain you this verse correctly, there, those, when we say awake and sleep, there are three things you need to understand. We have three states in a particular day which we cross across every day. One is Jagrat Avastha, which is the awaking state or waking state. One, Swapna Avastha, which is the dream state. Sushupti Avastha, which is the deep sleep state. Okay. Now, when you say everyone is sleeping, that's the deep sleep state we are talking about. That's the first thing I want to clarify. Because actually, the dream state also is a semi-waking state, because you are transacting in the dream state. You are not sleeping yet. That is why if somebody does not get at sleep and is dreaming the whole time, the person is actually lie down on the bed and has to get at be woken up the next day, the person will say, what, I'm sorry, actually I did not get rest at all. What happened? You were sleeping. Because physically we can see that person lying down, but actually internally the person is dreaming. Means what? The person is acting. So dream state is not a state of sleep. And that is why I, in one of my podcasts, also mentioned, which I'm bringing it out again today. The thing is, that is why in Sanatan Dharma, sweet dreams is not a wish, it's a curse. Sweet, when somebody wishes that, sweet dreams, that means you're cursing me that I should end up dreaming only, should not go into deep sleep. That's why we have this word in Sanatan Dharma, which we wish is Nisha Swasthi. May your sleep be auspicious. Means what? May you get rest properly. Swasti means it should be auspicious to you. Means what? You may not have to end up struggling in dream state. Dream state is also a struggle, by the way, because you are acting. There is no physical action, but there is a lot of action, and you experience result also in that particular state. So what is meant here is that which is the time of, that's towards which the whole world is sleeping. Now understand the literal meaning. The way Bhagwan is trying to see the meaning, what Bhagwan is trying to draw. What Bhagwan has compared here with the day and night is, night is the time when we sleep. Day is the time when we are awake and we transact. So the way we need to understand the meaning of this verse is that towards which the entire world of beings are sleeping towards that which is the eternal truth, which is the supreme consciousness, towards that a man of realization is awake. It's not about the literal day and night. So why Bhagwan has given the example of Ratri here? To explain that Ratri means Tamo Avastha. Tamostha means an avastha of tamas. Tamas means when our comprehension completely is missing in things of this world, things and objects of this world, even though they exist. but they remain unavailable for us. Means what? Let me just explain this way. Ratri's example or the night's example Bhagwan has brought out. Night does not cause destruction of the worldly objects. But what it does for us is, even though those worldly objects remain, they are not destroyed, but they become unavailable for us. Means what? They are not comprehended by us. So the way we have to understand the meaning of this particular verse is, towards that, towards which the entire gamut, entire group of beings are sleeping towards, a man of realization is awake towards that. Means the man of realization has awakened to the state of supreme consciousness. Means what? And let's translate the meaning of the next line also. Towards that to which the whole world is awake. Means what? Towards the ignorance or the comprehension of world and worldly objects, situations and things. Towards that, the man of realization is sleeping. Man of realization is sleeping means they are not in comprehension of the man of realization. Even though they exist, man of realization is able to have a clear vision of the supreme consciousness. Amongst the worldly objects also, the man of realization is able to clearly see, comprehend, and enjoy the bliss of supreme consciousness as in the waking state also. So towards that, towards which the whole world is awake, means worldly objects, situations and people, towards that the man of realization is sleeping. Man of realization is sleeping means man of realization does not see them as anything but the extension of supreme consciousness alone. The man of realization comprehends the one supreme consciousness, the unbroken self, which is all pervading all of us, and these things also exist in that at supreme consciousness, and the supreme consciousness remains undivided even after the comprehension of the world and worldly objects, so-called world and worldly objects, remains. That is what the literal meaning of this particular verse is. That much for today. Remaining we'll see in the next session. कायेन वाचा मनसेन्द्रियैर्वा बुद्ध्यात्मना वा प्रकृते स्वभावात् करोमि यद्यत् सकलं परस्मै नारायणायेति समर्पयामि श्रीमन्नारायणायेति समर्पयामि। ओम पूर्णमदः पूर्णमिदं पूर्णात् पूर्णमुदच्यते पूर्णस्य पूर्णमादाय पूर्णमेवावशिष्यते। ओम शांति शांति शांति। हरि ओम श्री गुरुभ्यो नमः। हरि ओम। ओम तत्सत्।